all you big budget blockbuster fans out there. Your two favorite wild movie critics are back again. And tonight we are back with a brand new film that just hit Netflix this past weekend. It was directed by the Russo brothers. It stars Millie Bobby Brown, of course, from Stranger Things, and Uncle Chris Pratt. It's called The Electric State.
You wanna go get your brother back? I'll go with you.
What's going on, all you lifeless robots out there? It's your two least favorite uncles back from Cinephellas. And Electric State, everybody's been talking about this film. A lot of bad things about this movie, and me and this guy over here, Uncle Henry, had the chance of watching this past weekend. Of course, this film is directed by the Russo brothers, of course, from Infinity War, Endgame, bunch of movies out there. So I was interested in seeing this film. It takes place in alternate 1990s. Robots are a normal part of life. There's this war between humans, and they're exiled out to this, place in the desert. And, it kind of sets up the characters behind me. Millie Bobby Brown, she's out looking for her long lost brother with her robot, and comes across, this goofball behind us, Chris Pratt's character, and really sets up the film.
It sets up this robotic film here we have with all these robots, characters, something that I saw in previews before, Mr. Peanut, and some other notable characters along the way, robotic characters, like a US Postal Service lady robot, which was pretty cool. Everything looks really great and fabulous. They put a lot of money into the budget here. They have a big cast. Chris Pratt, of course, starred in a lot of blockbusters. He's back, basically, like we talked about before, playing Star-Lord again. Not really a big stretch here for Mr. Pratt. And then Millie Bobby Brown, it's interesting to see her enter this phase of her career. Everybody's used to her in Stranger Things being this little girl. Now she's, in her 20s and starting to play, an older character in here, although in this one she's still kind of a high school kid. Have you here, but it's definitely more of a grown-up performance out of her. And yeah, like you mentioned, they try to set up this very emotional and human relationship between her and her brother, and also setting up like an alternate reality in the 90s where there's this big corporation and they're involved in basically keeping everybody plugged in. And there's a lot of parallels, obviously, to what's going on in the current world. And with the whole, idea of putting on these goggles or the helmets there reminded me a lot of, obviously, Apple Vision Pro and then all your virtual reality, technology coming out today.
Yeah, this movie reminded me a lot of Ready Player One, Fallout, and
Hmm.
list goes on, and just kind of a
Yep.
rip off of that. It's kind of the same realm. CGI looks pretty good with the robots in the film. Some of those look practical. I don't know if they actually were, but they look pretty decent. And some definitely unusual choices for the robots themselves throughout the film without giving away too much. Mr. Peanut. But this all has to revolve around the tech mogul Ethan Skate, played by Stanley Tucci. He, has his breakthrough in neural links that links humans to robots and can control them, and he's kind of like the bad guy in the film, and a very cartoon character, I will say, by Stanley Tucci, as most people are in this film. But it's really the characters behind me, 11, Star-Lord, going on this adventure with robots and getting introduced to all these kind of retro looking ones that they find out, exiled in this desert place, really seeing all these different kind of forms and robots and things like that. So it has a lot to say in this film about, AI and robots.
It has a lot to say about all that, but it feels very robotic. With the story and everything is tailored to all the technology here in this movie with the robots, the big giant robots walking around, roaming, but not enough attention was paid between the actual relationship in the story. Like you never got the idea that Michelle and Keats, who is Chris Pratt's character, like ever really, hit it off or had any like dynamic between their relationship. It was kind of just like one note the whole way through. And also with Michelle and her brother, that's the whole heart of the story. And they never really made you care at all watching the movie. I never really cared what was going to happen here. Basically, the story has to do with her brother being kept alive, and Stanley Tucci's character is, behind all of this, and they have to go on this journey. There's a lot of, needle drops throughout this. You can tell the Russo brothers were throwing in some of their favorite songs along the way. So there's a couple cool needle drops throughout and some cool like cinematic moments, with these cool songs in the background, but nothing really memorable in terms of action scenes or nothing really stands out for me. I mean, there's the one part where the big giant robot was walking around kind of throwing stuff out of its way and a little action in there with some other flying robots. But nothing really stood out for me in this film. Like the performances, even the CGI, like everything felt kind of wasted. Like we'd seen this whole thing before, like you mentioned, Ready Player One, Fallout, among other movies. Nothing felt new and nothing felt cutting edge here. And the relationships and the story just didn't work out for me.
Another movie, Five Nights at Freddy's. That sort of also reminded me of the robots. And yeah, it just felt like it was all thrown together. Didn't really flow very well. The script storytelling was pretty awful. A lot of characters you don't care about. The chemistry wasn't there. Felt like a bunch of, rip-offs of other stuff thrown together. CGI was impressive, I will say that, and I like the music as well. With two things that I really enjoyed about this movie. Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt are kind of the same characters we've seen before. I felt like a grown-up version of Eleven and Star-Lord with a wig on with this. It just felt like a paycheck for these characters. They didn't feel like they really invested and took time. But maybe that's just the writing too of the characters. But yeah, I didn't really care for much of this movie. Took me a few days to get through it. Bombed. It was like over 300, like $20 million to make. Most expensive movie on Netflix, and just awful movie across the board. And I was really disappointed with this because I love the Russo brothers, actors, actresses, everybody involved. Giancarlo Esposito's and there's just, a bunch of people that show up throughout the film, Stanley Tucci. But yeah, just nobody I really loved in this movie or really cared about. So big misfire, big miss for me. So that being said, I'm gonna give The Electric State, currently streaming on Netflix. I'm gonna give it a 1.5 out of 5. Bobby Brown hair pieces. Have a little step party.
I wish I watched the music video instead of this movie. It would have been
Me
better
too.
use of our time. The Electric State, yeah, this had a lot of, this was actually based on a novel that was written. So they could have just taken a lot from that book and brought it over to the movie here and probably done a lot better with it. No, it didn't feel fully fleshed out. It felt like they were going for more, glitz and glamour on the screen rather than going for, the relationships here and forming a cohesive story. It felt just like a journey along the way, and let's show you a bunch of cool stuff on the way. Not terrible. I like the whole 90s vibe with it, was cool, and seeing some of the nostalgic stuff from that. And like you mentioned, Chris Pratt's hair reminded me of Patrick Swayze's from Point Break. So you could tell that they pulled from some pop culture. So we always like that kind of stuff. But yeah, there definitely isn't enough to save this movie. It's one of the worst movies that have come on Netflix in a while here. I'm not surprised that the numbers weren't great over the weekend, too. Seeing a lot of people haven't bothered to check it out after hearing the word of mouth from it. I was hopeful after watching the previews that we'd be in for something cool here, but just fell flat for me and couldn't really recommend it to anyone. So with that being said, I am going to give The Electric State by the Russo brothers. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5 Stanley Tucci hair pieces.
Yeah, there's a ton of people that showed up in this movie, voiced robots and showed up. Ki Hoi Kwan is, I forgot to bring that up earlier, doing a triple feature of Ki Hoi Kwan tonight. He has a small part in Electric State, plays a doctor. He was great, of course, as always. And the actors that are in this movie, actresses, they give it their all. Just that the writing script is the big problem in this movie and just very hollow. But anyways, want to hear from all you wild robots out there. What did you like about the Electric State? Anything? What did you like about it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, check out these wild uncles on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV, movie news, and reviews.
That was kind of cool how all three of the movies that we're reviewing actually have Ke Huy Quan in it. I had no idea about this one having him in it, and it kind of went in line with the other two that we were reviewing. So kind of cool how that happened. We didn't really plan it out like that.
Nope.
At least I did. I didn't put my two rocks in my skull together and, come up with that. That's for
It just kind of
sure.
happened that way. It's just the
Yeah.
beauty of life sometimes. It just kind of
That's right.
happens.
Yeah, it's awesome seeing him in so many movies now. He's such a likable guy and glad that he's getting work, especially at this point in his career as an older gentleman now. So very cool, although I will say his role in this was, less, less to be desired here. He played like a doctor. Hopefully the Russo brothers will get back on track, especially since they're working on, an even bigger budgeted movies here with the next two Avengers movies. Doomsday and Secret Wars, of course. And we were also talking about Gray Man earlier, how we really enjoyed that. So hopefully they can get back to their winning ways. I know they've been involved in a lot of productions. There's still some talented filmmakers here, just didn't like The Electric State very much. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching our review of The Electric State. Till the next Cinephellas movie review, I'm Uncle Henry Pratt.
And I'm Logan Russo signing out to the next movie review.